All right. Well, uh, good afternoon, Kentucky. Yesterday, I met with Brianna Taylors' mother before she came up here. I sat and I listened, and what I heard was a mother in pain that wants justice and the truth. She deserves both. Brianna's death, along with others across the country, have led to thousands of people giving voice and a demand for truly equal treatment under the law and the end to injustices that permeate almost every part of our society. I don't have the words or the personal experience to describe those feelings of frustration, of tiredness, of anger, especially for Americans that have waited far, far too long for change. What we saw yesterday, we saw some amazing moments. A rendition of Amazing Grace through the pain. And what we saw were demonstrations, even after painful events, that were peaceful. And I want to ensure the people of Kentucky know I'm listening. As we move forward, we will be reducing our National Guard presence in Louisville. That was a recommendation by our Adjutant General that we will be following. After the death of David McAtee, I authorized the Critical Incident Response Team of KSP to investigate. This is a unit that investigates police-involved shootings all over the Commonwealth. This is what they do. In Kentucky, they're the best. I've told them that it must be fast and it must be thorough. While I know today there were some videos released, and any video footage out there of any type ought to be released. And I said yesterday there ought to be body cam footage. There should have been. But any footage ought to be released so that people can watch it and people can see with their own eyes and make determinations with their own eyes. In our office, our oversight of that investigation, our point person is Michael Brown. Michael is the Executive Cabinet Secretary. He is the highest appointed official in Kentucky. He was the Justice Cabinet Secretary for 8 years, overseeing the entirety of the state police. Long before that, he was a district judge in Jefferson County. So I'm going to ask Michael to come up and to give a update on that ongoing investigation. After that, we will give an update on COVID-19, and we'll take questions. Michael.
Thank you, Governor. As we all know, shortly after midnight on June 1st, there were units of the Louisville Metro Police Department and Kentucky National Guard in the vicinity of 26th and Broadway. They had reported that there had been gunshots and that they had returned fire. We had one deceased person, as the governor stated. David McAtee died at the scene. I can tell you very preliminarily, the results of first results of an autopsy seem to indicate that Mr. McAtee succumbed to a single, we believe, a single gunshot wound to the chest. But tests on bullet fragments will have to be conducted at the Kentucky State Police Crime Lab to see if we can determine exactly which type of bullet he was struck by. At this time, we do not know that, but we do believe it was a single bullet. Following the incident, there were a number of people, approximately 13, who were at the residence where Mr. McAtee was. They were interviewed. Many of them had samples taken, gunshot residue samples. None of these results are back yet. They're all very new, and they were all preliminarily interviewed. At that residence, we recovered a total of 7 weapons, 6 handguns one shotgun. All will be undergoing certain types of tests, including tracing by ATF, DNA testing. We're going to look to see which, if any of them, have been discharged. We clearly believe at least one of them was discharged. And try to match up those weapons with any of the shell casings that were found in the vicinity. We obtained search warrants. Those search warrants yielded, in part, videos from both external cameras and internal cameras at that location. And in fact, as the governor alluded to, video from those cameras was released earlier today by Louisville Metro and available for review. That review will continue in great detail, frame by frame, to further get a better indication of exactly what the sequence of events. And in fact, we hope to go through a very laborious practice of trying to match up those videos with any other videos that were done either by civilian or security cameras, and along with any audio video that we might have captured, say, on police radios, to try to truly get a true chronology of what occurred. All of the weapons that we believe were involved by the National Guard and Louisville Metro were inventoried, and it is our belief at this time that approximately 18 shots were fired between the National Guard and Louisville Metro Police that evening. And again, we have collected shell casings, and those weapons are also in our custody for further testing. And they will be tested for DNA and any other thing we can get from them. We're going to be reviewing whatever body cam video is available, audio. I have been in contact with both the Commissioner of the Kentucky State Police. I had a conversation last night with the United States Attorney for the Western District of Kentucky, who indicated that the FBI, alongside of KSP, would be participating and conducting an investigation. Our goal is to get all of the facts, get them quickly, and be able to present as much as possible, clear determination of what happened, again, shortly after midnight on June 1st. We will be giving updates as appropriate, given the fact that this is an ongoing investigation. I cannot comment any further on the results other than what I've given you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Our commitment is the truth. No matter what that truth is, good, bad, ugly, our commitment is the truth. That's what the people of Kentucky deserve. That's what the families involved in this deserve, and that's what we're going to ensure happens. It's again, a time in America where I hope that there is a different and better world moving forward, that hopefully everybody that's willing to listen can hear, and to continue to listen, and to take steps in whatever way they can in their lives to create a type of world where everybody has opportunity and nobody has to feel unsafe in their communities. Also going to give the first COVID-19 update that I've been able to give in several days. We put out a release last night that talked about Sunday's numbers, which had been down, Monday's numbers, which were up, and with a number of deaths. We are back down today in new cases, even with a number of tests. So as Dr. Stack and I were talking earlier, it's going to take 5, 6, 7 days to try to truly see if this was perhaps related to our testing in long-term care, if we are seeing an escalation of cases It's just going to take a little bit of time, and we want to get it right, and we don't want to give people guesses. We want to try to make reasonable determinations based on data, and we simply don't have enough right now to suggest that there is a new bump. Right now, I still believe that if we are not plateaued, we are decreasing, but the data is going to bear that out, and we're going to have to watch and see. So today we're reporting 155 new cases, 155 of COVID-19. Once you remove duplicates and the rest, we now have a total number of cases, ever in Kentucky, because many of these people have recovered, and some we've lost, of 10,185. Of those, 215 are probable, and the rest are lab confirmed. Those cases are out of a total number of tests now of 253,585. I know we are now in the upper half of states on the total number of tests that have been run, and that's an incredible story given where we started. Total number of Kentuckians ever hospitalized, 2,307, currently 481. Ever in the ICU, 941, currently 85. And the numbers recovered, 3,275. New cases by county, 46 in Jefferson, 17 in Franklin, 10 in Fayette and Warren, 8 in Boone, 6 in Gallatin and Kenton, 3 in Bullitt, Campbell, Hardin, Marion, Pulaski, Shelby, and Union, 2 in Anderson, Barron, Harrison, Jessamine, Knox, Logan, Perry, and Woodford, and 1 in Boyle, Crittenden, Estill, Floyd, Graves, Henderson, Lawrence, Madison, Mercer, Monroe, Nelson, Pendleton, and Taylor. Today, we're also announcing that we've lost 3 additional Kentuckians, bringing our total loss statewide to 442. One of those is probable. The others are all confirmed. They include a 92-year-old man from Eulenburg, a 94-year-old man from Jefferson, and a 69-year-old woman from Clay. Let's remember that we, for a lot of reasons, let's keep lighting our homes up green. Let's continue to ring our bells at 10 a.m. Let's do it for those that we've lost from this and from senseless violence. Everybody that we've lost that should still be here and deserves that same level of compassion. And we started it for COVID-19, but can't we show that compassion, that love, and that caring for every family that's suffering, for every family that's going through trauma, for every family that has a loved one that they won't see tomorrow? Let's make sure that we take the compassion that we have shown to our fellow human being in COVID-19 and make sure we're showing that compassion to every human being, whether we have lost them or not. I think right now listening, compassion, and action are all so very necessary. Ethnicity and race. Before, what we're seeing in Louisville and around the country, this again was showing what inequality results in, which is death. We were seeing that because of inequalities that have lasted hundreds of years and absolutely exist in our healthcare system, that we were losing almost twice as many Black and African Americans to this virus as they represent in our population. It is not okay. It is not okay, and we're going to do something about it. I hope later this week we're going to announce some of our initial plans about trying to get both leaders in the African American community and the actual providers, hospital systems, Medicaid, insurers, all in the same room together, not to have a task force or a study, but to see how we can actually get this done, how we can actually make change in the health of individuals. Just like in many ways it shouldn't have had to take some terrible incidents around our country to wake people up or to get them to listen to the type of injustices that are occurring in our society. It shouldn't take a one in every 100-year pandemic for us to see the same in healthcare. So of cases, ethnicity, 84.57% of our COVID-19 cases are non-Hispanic and 15.43% are Hispanic. On race, 74.3% of cases are white, 14.5% of cases are Black or African Americans, 5.37% are Asians, 5.55% are multiracial. On deaths, ethnicity, that's pretty much 97% non-Hispanic and 3% Hispanic. And then we look at deaths. And you got to know, I mean, not that we shouldn't know that it's wrong if the cases are disproportionate, but deaths, 78.95% white, 17.29% Black or African American, when those individuals make up 8% of the population. 2% multiracial, 1.75% Asian. So it's certainly a time in America where our inequalities have been laid bare. And it's going to be our job to make sure that is not the case going forward. So with that, we'll open it up to questions, and we'll answer as many as we can. So.
The videos that were displayed earlier today by Louisville's mayor, was that the first time that you had seen those? And do you feel like do you believe their assertion or their belief that McAtee shot?
I was able to see the videos before they were released. I believe that now that they have been released, people have the opportunity to spend time watching them, to watch them as many times as they need to, and see what they see. It is only one piece of a much larger and what will be an ongoing investigation. I know what our investigators will do, what news outlets can do, is to look at it frame by frame, minute by minute, but then that's just one data point that you then have to match up to everything else that happened and every other piece of evidence that's there. In the end, I just want the truth, and I trust Kentuckians when all of the evidence is out there with the truth. Sometimes I know that that's what Kentuckians want. They don't want to feel like someone is telling them and not showing them the totality of the evidence, and people deserve to be able to see things on their own. I believe that everybody can look at that video, but the video does not have audio, and so you're going to have to line up a lot of different pieces of information there. Karen?
With pulling back the National Guard, if things escalate, did you readjust? And are you especially concerned with the president saying it could?
So we are reducing our National Guard presence right now. I believe that especially after last night and the way it went, and the night before, that was a recommendation by the Guard itself. I know that there is real sensitivity right now with the Guard. I believe that the Guard has been necessary, that there was a potential, especially going into Saturday night, where there were some real concerns and information out there. And I called them in solely to try to ensure that people were safe. Now, going forward, their command is now mixed in and an active part of every decision that is made that deals with the Guard. Yesterday, we had been really firm that the Guard, especially yesterday, should not be in the West End. As it turned out, there was a group that was tied to a fire truck that was supposed to go wherever that went, just to provide that security, and ended up responding to the fire at the gas station, which I believe our store is called Dino's. Shouldn't have happened. We made sure we rectified that, and that's to try to to try to hear and to try to listen and to try to respond the right way.
Morning, you appeared pretty confident that we would be able to glean more information through the body cam footage. Of course, we've since learned that body cams weren't activated. Where was the breakdown there? Did you receive that information?
I received information yesterday that there was footage. Now, it could have been the poll camera footage, but by goodness, I mean, to not have body cameras on is unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and it's going to make it harder for folks to accept evidence as it comes in, because that should be there. I understand that, and it's not okay. But my commitment is through the KSP investigation. We are not going to rely on a single piece of evidence. We're going to ensure that and they're doing it. They are working really fast. They are being very thorough. Everything that I have seen and that has been reported thus far, I would tell people that I believe that we can have confidence in this investigation, but we're going to ensure that we see that through. And I know Michael, with his experience, both from overseeing all of the Kentucky State Police to his time as a district judge, will help us ensure that we do. Lawrence.
Let me ask the question this way. Looking at the McAtee video, did it change your perspective on what happened that night?
The question is again on the video, and I just believe that is one piece of evidence, and there are numerous others that they will get. They haven't done ballistics yet, or it's in process, and I just believe that it is really important first on a video that everybody has time to watch it and to digest it without me telling you what I think it shows. I mean, everybody else has eyes and ought to be able to look at that, and then there's still so many other questions that are out there and that have to be answered. Tom.
Governor, thank you. There are roughly 400 or so Guards members out there now. When you talk about reduction, how many are being?
Well, from a public safety standpoint, we're not going to disclose the numbers of Guards, men or women, as the force is reduced. We believe that there will be a sufficient amount there to where if the worst happens, something that nobody wants, if violence was created, which I do not believe has happened due to any of those that are out there intending to give voice. But if people did try to hijack those protests, that there would be at least a presence to ensure that doesn't happen. But again, what we are seeing right now has been a very peaceful set of demonstrations with some criminal activity in the looting that wasn't connected to any of that. And so I know, I guess it was called looting last night from the Krogers. That was somebody breaking in and stealing stuff. I don't believe that was connected in any way to any demonstration. So I know I've heard the word looting. Right now, that's associated with these demonstrations. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's accurate. But my hope is that we'll be able to fully reduce the Guards' presence in the very, very near future. So, Morgan.
The Louisville police officials today publicly alleged that based on the videos that they released, it appears that McAtee shot her in the altercation. Based on the investigation that's happening with KSP, as we just heard about, are they comfortable, based on the evidence they've gathered, to make the same claim?
The Kentucky State Police isn't gonna make a claim about what the video shows until they've been able to collect all of the evidence and put it all together.
You mentioned that there was some mistakes made with LMPD, including not having body camera footage on. Do you think there's any mistakes made on the part of National Guard and so forth?
The question is, do I think it was a mistake to call up the National Guard? Do I think that there are any mistakes made by the National Guard? We need to see the evidence. I believe that the National Guard is a highly trained group of individuals, and they are. Remember, they are not just some military out there. They're our neighbors. right? They're our friends. They're people who work regular jobs and then are called up to service. We're going to get all the information and make sure that we're able to put it out. But I have a high degree of confidence in our Guard. But if mistakes were made, we'll own up to them. The Guard does that too. We got to make sure, though, that all the evidence gets in, and then we'll move forward. Yeah.
The 6 handguns and 1 shotgun that were found in the home, one of those all belong to McAtee. Is there any determination on that, or is there any reason to believe that those weapons were there illegally, either just by somebody there possessing them that shouldn't have been, or just by their design?
I think those facts are still developing and are part of an ongoing investigation where questions are still being asked. So we don't have any additional information on the weapons found inside the house to disclose. Karen.
Those who are still waiting on unemployment, what are the updates since the changes made last week?
I know that we had a significant number of claims processed. I don't have the unemployment information here with you. We will get that in writing. I know that we had an uptick in unemployment claims over the last week. My belief is that we are going to see that decrease substantially as we have had more openings, just like we've had today. I believe that especially as we move towards a vaccine, and hopefully we will see one, that our economy can bounce back. But this is an opportunity. I mentioned this yesterday. This is an opportunity for a changed America. After events like this significant, America has been different. Our economy has been different. Our society should be different. And this is an opportunity to build a more resilient economy, one that mirrors the times that we live in, and a more equitable economy as well. My hope is that as we change, especially MCO providers, that there is real opportunity for jobs, especially in the west end of Louisville, as has been pledged by one of these groups, and that we, with the time and the opportunity, ought to do the job training. We ought to do that also in that community with groups that can do it. This is, it might sound trite, this is our chance to build a better world. And right now we're hearing the demand for it, not the need, the demand, and we're also seeing the desperate need for it in these COVID numbers.
Confidence in Mayor Fisher's leadership?
I believe that Mayor Fisher right now is working to rebuild relationships, to communicate with community leaders. I know he spent much of today doing that, trying to ensure that they had their questions answered.
Clarification is a question. Clarification is these weapons that were found in his business or in his house? I'm not sure what.
Well, it's one structure. It's one structure.
We need to start wearing body cams. That's something you'll.
We need to look into body cams for the Kentucky State Police. If I remember, the issue came up before, and it was cost of servers, I believe, was an issue, though I wasn't directly involved in that. It's something that we need to look at. Yes, and we absolutely need to look at it. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry. Got it.
One of the restrictions put into place were on door-to-door sales.
Yes.
Has that restriction been lifted yet?
No, the restriction on door-to-door sales is still in place. We can look at the schedule as we're moving forward, but it is still in place. Morgan?
This may have been mentioned, I may have missed it, so forgive me, but were the guns that were found on site legally owned? Is that?
We don't have any more information on that particular that set of information at the moment.
Obviously, there have been some people, and even including city leaders, who come forward to say there have been people from out of town coming into some of these protests. In fact, last time we met somebody that was from St. Louis that come into town. Have you been able to identify if these people are from certain groups, and what is your message to groups or people that are coming in from out of state?
the question is, what is my message from people or groups that are coming in for out of state for these demonstrations? And if we've been able to identify groups, our intelligence that we receive say that we've got groups from out of town that are coming in to demonstrate right alongside those Kentuckians that are giving voice to justice. We also have some intelligence that there are those present that want to incite violence where everybody would get hurt, and that their goal is that everybody is hurt. These are folks that want to hijack something that is peaceful and is seeking a better world and trying to turn it into something violent, and we want to ensure that that doesn't happen. Much of what we have seen and or heard is anecdotal. We have certainly seen footage of an individual dressed head to toe in black, almost tactical gear, just walking down the street with a hammer, breaking every window. I believe that that's an attempt to make our demonstrations look like they're causing property damage at a time when they weren't.
When Louisville police talked about this earlier today, there were a lot of questions they declined to answer because of the ongoing investigation. I know the one on top of my mind is whether or not they actually found the gun on McAtee's person. Do you feel like they should be more open in regards to the details that they are releasing and haven't released yet?
So LMPD has certain protocols in place about what information they talk about at any given time, and maybe those protocols need to be looked at. What I think they're doing is following them. For us, I've made some very specific commitments, and so our goal is where we can, without compromising the investigation, is to try to share information as we go, but to share it without conclusion, because this is still ongoing. And I believe that all the evidence has to speak together. And I believe by the end, when we pull everything together, hopefully we have a clear picture that we can show people. And my hope is that it can provide us as much context as possible. Now, I will say that I believe when video footage is found, it ought to be put out there. It ought to be put out there so people can see it and evaluate it. And context absolutely will need to be added to it as you go. It's just one piece of evidence, but I believe, especially with something that people can see with their own eyes, we need to be transparent. We need to put it out, and I believe that's one of the reasons that it was done today. Karen.
I was talking to a group of protesters who were talking about your daily briefings. And so I asked one of them, who'd like to know just by his first name, Devon, if you were in here, then what would you say? And this is what may I read this?
Yes, please.
I've dealt with inequity my whole life. We need a complete overhaul. You can't talk about just police brutality or just education. I have no faith in any politicians, and I've never trusted the police. Nothing will ever change.
Yeah, so Karen read a statement of a protester, of a demonstrator, and you can tell it's very very raw, right? And I say that in a positive way, and giving voice to a frustration and a lack of faith in government moving forward. All I can do is work every single day to try to create a little bit of that faith. As I've mentioned before, when I became governor, and I've been governor for about 6 months, as I stand here tonight, we were taking a number of steps. Now, they're not enough, and restoring voting rights wasn't enough. We should have that constitutional amendment, which I still want to push for. Ensuring that we had expanded Medicaid and people weren't getting kicked off is not enough, but it was a step. Trying to build a cabinet that reflects our state, again, not enough, but a step. But I think what we're hearing is small steps are not enough, and we need to see significant, substantial change. And I want to be a partner in that, but it's going to take proof. It's going to take action. I understand that, and I'll work hard to create that, to take those steps, to make sure that a belief isn't based on blind faith. It's based on what people see, what people hear, and what actually happens.
President threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act and use military money against the Americans.
I mean, the president's statements about bringing in the military are not appropriate, and they are not helpful. I don't know if he's speaking out of frustration, but what we have seen here in Kentucky, no, he should not do it. Well, I hope that we ultimately come out of this and going forward handle things appropriately. We do not need the federal government coming in here and taking any of those actions.
Can you clarify what you said about the Kroger? Was the term alluding to Kroger? You're saying that you're not convinced it was looting?
Well, I think that the term looting, the question is about talking about the looting at Kroger. It's right now we are at a time where certain words are tied emotionally to different things that are occurring. And right now, I think if you say that the Kroger was looted, that people think that it was connected to demonstrations, and it wasn't. Yes, people went in and they took things. Yes, that breaks the law, but this was in a way almost like burglarizing the facility. I just want to make sure that I am very clear that I do not believe it's related to the demonstrations. I believe, in fact, that the demonstrators very much would not want that to happen. I believe that that's an institution that's important for the food supply of that community. And I want to make sure that I'm careful in my words to say that this was a separate criminal act in no way related to the demonstrations we're seeing. Tom.
Governor, what do you think the president is trying to accomplish with his tweets, and what are your thoughts about what he's actually accomplishing with those tweets?
Which tweets?
The comments he made on Twitter regarding
I think the question is about the president's tweets on the demonstrations. I can say that the way that resolved is not the right word. The way to, I believe, the way for someone like me to try to address what's going on is to listen, to open my ears, to try to hear, and to the degree I can, understand. And that words of force, words of violence are not appropriate, are not. What we're hearing is a pain and an anger that runs deeper than I could ever understand, and to respond to that with words of force or violence isn't listening. Morgan.
You mentioned earlier that you feel that it's clear that bigger changes are needed, right? Are you looking at or interested in advocating for and pushing for changes to police procedure, not just with body cams, but with things like prohibiting chokeholds and neck restraints, civilian review boards being more widespreadly used both for the state police and police departments across the state?
Yeah, I think that when we talk about change and widespread change that's needed, it's economic. And I think that we have an opportunity in front of us that should just be one of a number of opportunities we take. It's in healthcare, where especially with the number of hospitals and other providers in Louisville, I think wanting to make key investments, I believe that we should be able to make a difference there. And it's also in our justice system, and that's got to go everywhere from our policing to our incarceration rates to the revocation of voting rights to inequality and what charges result in what sentences. Have to make sure that there isn't a difference in who is paroled or probated because of the color of their skin, and in our policing. I mean, I think that this, all across the country, says that this isn't an individual feeling like they are unsafe. This is a major part of our society that, and we shouldn't accept a world where we know that people feel unsafe around those who are hired to keep us all safe. So I believe we've got to look at all of the concerns that are there. We've got to look at all of the practices. And when something happens, like it did in Louisville to Brianna Taylor, like it did in Minnesota, you've got to look at policies. You've got to look at changing things. You know, you don't want a tragedy to have to teach you something that should be different. But if a tragedy happens, you've got to learn from it. You can't repeat it.
For anybody that is going back out protesting tonight, how do you may have touched on this before, but how do you balance COVID-19 and protesting? I mean, obviously, we say social distancing, but the images we're seeing, obviously, that's not happening.
The question is on protesting and COVID-19. COVID is still out there. It still spreads aggressively. It can still be deadly. So I'd ask people, do your best to be safe. I know that what's happening right now is important, and I know this community takes COVID very seriously, which just shows you how important what's being said and demonstrated truly is. So please wear a mask. Most people are. You got better compliance in these demonstrations than we do just about anywhere. Please try to spread out if and when you can. Obviously, they're occurring outdoors, which is helpful from a COVID perspective. And if you can and you will, please try to avoid, for the time being, some of our seniors and those that have underlying health conditions if you've been at one of these demonstrations. I know that if you're at one of these demonstrations, you're looking for a just, safe world for everybody. So let's make sure we take care of especially those that are especially susceptible to COVID-19. I'll do one more quick round. So, Joe.
Regarding the curfew, do you still believe, or do you have any reason to not believe that they were called to the scene initially because of the curfew violation? That's a claim that was made yesterday. And do you believe that the curfew should continue until June 8th?
I believe that one of the questions that needs to be answered, or the facts that need to come out, are all the reasons behind why the LMPD and the Guard was called to the Dino's area that night. I mean, I trust Kentuckians that we need to make sure that we have all the facts behind it and we lay them in front of them. Again, I think that people want the truth. Whether the truth is good, bad, or ugly, giving people the truth is the right thing to do, and they can process it. I don't know how much longer the curfew is going to go forward. I believe that it's still intended to keep everybody safe. Again, with where tensions might be, I'd ask that people who are going to demonstrate, if you're willing to, please do so during the day, and make sure that again, that everybody can stay safe.
They were called there because of the curfew violation, or at least you believe they were.
That's the first pieces of information that I have, but we need to look at where the order came from, what the dispatch was about. I think all of that's got to come out in the investigation. So, Karen.
Could you reiterate, as of today, I know the protocol can change, the frequency of testing, especially since we've had so many crowds?
So frequency of testing, my hope would be people would consider it at least monthly. Given that this is out there and given that we're going back to work, and depending on how much contact you've had with other people, I would do it more often than that. We've got more testing capacity than we have ever had. I mean, you look at now, 250-something thousand COVID tests. If we can continue our pace that we're on right now, it will certainly help us restoring our economy more safely. Mike.
Consider taking a visit to Louisville to meet with the protesters?
Yeah, we're looking at that. One thing that that I'm also trying to do with Brianna Taylor's mom is to give people not just the questions are, what I can do moving forward, but what I can do right now, and trying to, if I can, use my voice or the means of projecting it, and the ability for Brianna's mom and others to speak to an entire state, and if people are watching, an entire nation. I've only done one national interview since this started. It was on CNN, and I spent the majority of it reading from a statement from Tamika, Brianna's mom. If one of the things that I can do is help magnify voices, then it's something that I want to be able to do.
Visit to Louisville?
I don't have a planned visit at the moment. Lawrence.
You would comment on the Sixth Circuit ruling which overturned that part of House Bill 454 which restricted abortion.
The question is on a Sixth Circuit ruling, but I'm going to start one other place. There was a Supreme Court ruling just the other day that ruled that generally these restrictions, with some limitations that governors have put into place, are in fact legal. This was out of California. We believe that it is a ruling that will ultimately result in a favorable ruling in each of the challenges to the restrictions we've had to put in place for COVID-19. Do you have that bit of text up? We think that it's a bit of text that basically says during these times, the executive branch has to have latitude to address a worldwide health pandemic, and that a court, and this is their words, the Supreme Court of unelected judges shouldn't be second-guessing it. So we've submitted that decision to the federal courts that have our cases. Now, the Sixth Circuit recently overturned a Kentucky law on the topic of abortion. I believe that it followed what the Supreme Court has been saying, what the law has been for the last several decades. Was not surprised about it from that standpoint. In fact, you saw some pro-life legislators in the legislature vote against it because they believed that the law out there from the Supreme Court was so strong and so clear. Tom. Almost none of them are fully over. Basically, all the court cases on restrictions were about these temporary restraining orders, and they're called temporary because the case isn't over. We believe that the Supreme Court case will answer most all of the questions that have been asked, and even talk about whether a court should be hearing and trying to make a different decision than we've made. I believe we've made good decisions aimed at protecting people, and now we're trying to make wise decisions moving forward and reopening our economy while trying to do it safely. I believe those are the cases. I believe we might have gotten sued by a putt-putt facility, but I believe that falls along the same grounds. And I believe that one was in federal court too.
Support the continued use of or previous use of tear gas to disperse protesters, particularly when you have a pandemic that affects people's respiratory systems and causes coughing when you use tear gas?
I think we've got to, as we look at actions taken, look at each instance. And I think we should always be evaluating this where something like tear gas is used. We've got to evaluate and continue to evaluate to do better in the future. With COVID-19 out there, it certainly raises additional concerns, and certainly I know that there have been those, and it shouldn't just have to be elected officials, right? But elected officials that want to discuss that policy based on their own personal experiences, and that's a discussion that absolutely should happen. All right, last one.
To LMPD acting police chief Robert Schroeder about your expectations for this department now moving forward?
I've not personally spoken to the new head of LMPD, but I know our commissioner of the state police has been doing so directly, and I think I've also been really clear that the Kentucky State Police And this unit has the independence, I believe, the objectivity, and the training to do this right. And it is in everybody's best interest that they have the ability to do that, to bring, so that people can hopefully have some faith and some trust. And I know that's in short supply right now, but given that one of the concerns going back to Brianna Taylor is about the independence of the investigation, that is really important for this incident that just happened early yesterday morning. So we're going to continue to have a significant presence in that investigation. I'm going to make sure that ultimately the facts are laid out there for the people of Kentucky. All right. To those that are going to give voice again tonight, please be safe. I want to make sure that as governor, I do everything that I can to hear and to listen, and I know that's only part, and then it's got to be to act. The question was asked earlier about people having lost faith. I'm going to do everything I can to rebuild it. We ought to, in a post-COVID-19 world, which we will get to, strive for a better world, for a different world. One in every 100-year pandemic shouldn't be required for it to happen, nor should the incidents that we've seen. But we know our world is going to be different moving forward. So let's make it better. Thank you all.